What's up, fam? Welcome to the show. And what a show we've got for you this week. I cannot wait. We're jumping into this little mini series we've been doing, talking about habits that kill church growth. Such an important conversation because these are things that sometimes happen without us even realizing or even recognizing, stuff that happens behind the scenes, things that have been occurring in our church for years that we don't even consider the overall impact to our strategy, to those waves of momentum that we've been trying to capture so that our church can see the much needed growth that we want to see. And not that we're chasing numbers or chasing a dream beyond what God has for us, but rather we're chasing this idea of fundamental stewardship of the people that we have, the placement in our community, and the calling we have to make more and better disciples. So we're going to be getting to that conversation. You're not going to want to miss a minute of today's episode. And in fact, what's really cool is not only are we covering part 2 this week, but for next week's show, we're wrapping up this mini series with part 3. So you're going to get all of these habits that kill. And so this will be great for you to talk about with your team, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we get into it. But first, and as always, I would be remiss. That's good word usage, I think. I would be remiss if we did not spend a little time just catching up. We had a good Memorial break, but I'm looking across at a very tan, at a very rested, at a completely joyful Greg, the co-host with the most. Man, how are you, dude? What is going on?
Man, I'm really good. Sorry for the smoker's cough and my laugh, but I'm good. But I am not tan, and I am about the shade that I always am. Minus 3 on the white scale.
You're dangerously close to Casper the Friendly Ghost.
You're not wrong. I had somebody say to me the other day, I heard somebody talking about all these young people wearing shorts in church, and I just don't know. And I said to him, well, you want to know the only reason I don't wear shorts on the platform is because I don't want to blind everybody in the front 5 rows with those lights shining off my legs. I said, other than that, I don't care what you wear to church.
Jesus, are we in your glory right now? Are we in your glory? No, those are Greg's legs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It'd be like Moses coming off the mountain and needing to put a mask on.
I can't see. The glory is shined around us. Yeah. No, I get it, man. That's funny. You're still dealing with that, man. You're still dealing with that in church? Like people getting all fussy about shorts? Okay, just a few outliers.
Not really. Yeah, no. Our people are just glad to see people. And I'm grateful for that. But I was just trying to diffuse the situation a little bit.
Yeah.
And say, we're going to get worked up on what somebody wears to church. I mean, if it's covering up what it needs to cover up, like, I'm good.
I'm in that camp too, man. Like, so do you think you can, so like on a Sunday morning, can you pull off jeans?
No, I couldn't tell you last time I wore like anything beyond khakis on a Sunday morning. Like I wear jeans pretty much every week, and about as dressed up as I get is khakis.
Okay.
And those who know me well and who like to give me a hard time know that I rock the vest as often as possible, whether it's the button vest or the sweater. And it really has much to do with the reality of when I wear a vest or a sweater, I don't have to iron my shirt. Has very little to do with the aesthetic and much more to do with I'm lazy and don't want to iron.
Man, I like that. I like a guy that sets a high bar on fashion, but completely out of necessity. It's not even out of the appreciation for the uniform.
No, okay. It isn't that.
All right. Well, that's.
I look good in it. I'm not gonna lie.
No, you look good in a vest. There's no question. Like no one's arguing that. Do you put on a vest and it's like, all right, this dude's here for business.
That's right.
You ever thought about going old school, like a little, maybe like a little pocket square in the vest, and then maybe a pocket watch with a little chain hanging down?
Hey, now, come on. But then I would need somebody to play something on the organ underneath.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I talk, because I would just be that kind of put together that I would need that extra support.
You would need the extra support. Maybe it's like an old pair of wingtips or something. I think. Or we could go full Doc Holliday with it, and get yourself a nice flat. Yeah.
Like I'm your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Huckleberry. Like a nice flat hat. Anyway, you got VBS going on this week.
We do. And it's going to be a great week. Excited about what we're going to be able to do and hopefully get to engaged some families, had a crazy good weekend. It's probably been 4 or 5 Sundays, even though our numbers have been kind of on that roller coaster that is summer.
Yeah.
It's probably been 4 or 5 weeks since we've not had a visitor in worship. And so that's been really good.
Man.
Making some new inroads with some new folks. Not necessarily new to our community, but new to our church. And so, yeah, I'm excited. It's been a good few weeks.
That's good, man.
What's going on in the Whittemore house?
Oh, dude, man, we're living big Whitty style. We're getting after it. This it's going to be probably the best summer we've had in a really long time. We got a lot on the books, a lot planned, a lot going on. I got some trips going on. Got kids going to camp this summer, so that's going to be super cool. I'm very much looking forward to that for both them and me. So I think it's going to be good. But yeah, man, we're plugging away. Work's been good, life's been good, family's been good. I'm literally in a season where I have zero complaints. I'm sure if I look hard enough, I could find something to complain about, but I don't like to be that cat. I've been blessed with much, and so I try not to get too. I try to get too sideways on looking negatively at things. But man, life is good, and it's so interesting. Like I'm excited because this summer for us feels like a summer of momentum, just even within my family. And momentum is one of those things that when it comes to the summer, it's often the thing that we feel like we lose the most. Mm-hmm. It feels like that, man, that wave begins to crest, and we don't know when the next one's coming. And we think, even within the church world, they're like, oh, we just assume that as we end the summer and ramp up to the fall, which will be here before we know it, that that wave just magically appears. And the reality is that's not how momentum works. That even in the summer, we have these opportunities to capitalize on, even if it's just laying groundwork for momentum to be created. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation, is because we want our churches, we want to see our leaders step into a place where they own this space and not get sidetracked by the belief, or which I don't know, in often cases, well, in several cases, I think isn't true. It's not indicative of where people actually are. People are coming and going over the summer, traveling, got a lot to do. I get that. But that doesn't mean they're looking to disengage. They're just looking to engage a little differently. And so that's why we're talking about these habits that kind of kill church growth, and how the summertime can be a time where we can learn from that. We can assess some of our systems, our processes, our overall calendaring. And we've been talking about that. Maybe we did an episode a couple weeks ago on how to keep people engaged during the summer. And I've heard nothing but incredibly helpful and positive feedback from that episode, realizing that, man, we can press in during the summer. But one of the things that we can identify pretty quickly that is a habit that often kills church growth, and it's what I've picked up on already in talking to you, just kind of casually about VBS and the last few weeks of your church, and that is you guys tend to count the right things. That's one of the things I appreciate about you, and I appreciate about your church, that it's not just simply about the numbers, right? Because you could sit there and say, we're on the roller coaster, up weeks, down weeks, that's the way it goes, and we all know that. But that's not really what you're counting. What you're counting are, the folks that are engaging for the first time, inroads we're making into our community, new kids that are showing up for VBS that don't go to church anywhere. Those are really, really cool things to count. And that's why I think it's important that if there's one habit that we can talk about as we get started in this week's episode, is having really the wrong focus on the purpose behind why we do what we do. And so meaning sometimes we can focus too much on the what and not enough on the why. Yeah. And the why really matters. And we've talked about this, as it's come up kind of naturally in our conversations, but the why is really critical. So just talk a minute, man, about what is the motivation? What's the reasoning behind some of those things that you're counting, that you're measuring with regard to making some of those inroads into your community, looking at new visitors that are showing up, guests that are showing up, and why it's important to count those things, even when it comes down to kids visiting for VBS?
Sure. So we're kind of trying to shift not only our focus, but our thinking and the thinking of our people to kind of 3 key areas to carry us through probably realistically forever.
Yeah.
But specifically through 2026. And so the three things that we've pinpointed for our people is that we want to engage our community um, in a variety of ways with the intention and the overwhelming desire to point them toward Jesus and have the opportunity to share the good news of Jesus with them.
Man,
So
that's
whatever
awesome.
it takes to build those engagements, whether it's doing things in the community, doing things for the community, partnering with other community groups to serve our community or whatever it happens to be, but doing things to engage our community. And so as we're doing that and making that something that we want to be about, um, seeing new people from our community come in is a good indicator for us that we're doing a better job at engaging the community.
It's awesome.
We may not be where we want to be yet, but we're doing better because we're seeing some folks who have been longstanding part of our community, but are just getting connected to us and hoping that that's going to take root. And some of it is direct relationships that have come from the way that we've tried to engage our community.
Yeah, man.
And so we're trying to redouble our efforts there in the days coming forward, but then also pushing our people to be part of equipping the saints.
Yeah.
And so as we're focusing and pinpointing that as part of who we're about being, we want to go out of our way to ensure that we are not only teaching our own people the things that matter, but that we're teaching our children and the children in our community the things that matter. And so wanting to assess that and make that a big thing. And then our last one is that we want to impact the kingdom, not just the kingdom of Waterloo, but the kingdom of God around our country, around our community, around our state, around the nation, around the globe. And so what do those things look like? And all of those things are changing the things that we're counting.
Man, that's huge. Like having that's really clear focus around why, like this is why we're doing what we're doing, because we want to reach the community. We want to make a significant impact. We want to we want to be difference makers both here and across the globe. Like, man, that why is so critical. And I think that's a habit that is not always firsthand. It's not always like top of mind for a lot of folks. And so it's so easy to get kind of sucked into, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? We got to do more. We got to do more. And if we can't articulate why we're doing what we're doing, then people aren't going to care. And if they don't care, then why are we surprised when things don't work the way they're supposed to? And it's not to say that the things that we are doing or the plethora of offerings that we have on the table are bad or wrong, but we're not measuring them properly. And so without having that clear gauge of why, then all of a sudden now we're just simply reduced to probably something as simple as counting numbers.
Right.
And then that becomes extremely subjective, right? So if we think, man, we want to do a VBS this summer because we just want to, we want to have kids come. Okay, that's not bad, but does it matter then how many kids come or what churches they come from? And if 50 kids come, well, was that good? Well, I don't know. Some might say 50 kids was great. Some might say, that's way too low. There was no ROI on that at all. Man, we put a lot of money and time and volunteer equity into this. So that's the whole idea here, that this has got to be a habit that we've got to stop allowing to kill our growth and our momentum.
Yep.
Is we've got to spend time focusing on the why. I think also to that end, when we have a lot of things going on and a lot of things happening without clarity around the why, the people that can often impact the most is staff. Because all staff knows is, man, we've got this week of camp, we got this week of VBS, we've got this week of outreach, we've got this event we're holding here to have people on our campus, and then we're doing this, we've got this mission trip we're doing, we've got this outreach. I mean, goodness gracious. And it becomes this thing that it has to be so staff driven that if the staff is unsure of why we're doing what we're doing, then it's so easy for them to get burned out. And a habit that will kill church growth really, really fast in your church is having a burned out staff. Now, I'm curious to pick your brain because it felt like for a long time, particularly around like the early to mid 2000s, the phrase like burnout became kind of a buzzword.
Sure.
Like, I'm just burned out, just feeling burned out. And I don't know that we quite understood what that meant. And that really, to some degree, sparked division among staff, because there's some people, it's like, man, how could you be burned out in ministry? Like, it's a calling,
Right.
like ministry's supposed to be hard. So how can you be burned out if it's something you're called to? And so I think that there's been a lack of clarity around this notion of burnout. Like, as we're trying to reach into the hearts and minds of everyday pastors, how would you qualify like burnout? How would you identify what burnout looks like in the life of a church staff in the midst of having so much going on?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things is that lack of clarity of what they're doing and why they're doing it. I think that's a huge one, because it's the person who is either on the edge of burnout or who is in the midst of a season of burnout. They're mailing it in. They're
Yeah.
going through the motions. They don't really know why they're doing what they're doing outside of it's just what we do. But their apathy begins to just soar as far as like, yeah, we're going to do this, but I don't really I don't care if it goes well. I don't care if it's bad. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
We're just going to do it because we do it, and then it's going to be on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big indicators. I think some of the other things is you start to see them ask lots of questions about what does matter.
Oh, okay. Dang. Yeah.
And not usually from like a healthy place, but like, well, like, why are we doing that? It doesn't matter. Why are we doing that? That doesn't matter. Why are we doing that? That doesn't matter. Tends to be much more of what I have seen of people that have experienced burnout. But I'm with you. I'm afraid that we overuse burnout.
Yeah.
Not to say that folks, whether it's pastors or other ministry leaders, aren't tired, but I don't know that the vast majority are actually in the midst of burnout. Now, I think it does depend on what your definition is, but by and large, I think it is often you're just tired.
Yeah.
You just need a little bit of rest. Stop thinking that you are somehow better and serving your church well by not taking your vacation.
That's good, man.
Because that's just you being stupid.
Yeah.
And while I'm saying that, all of that is coming right back at me, because I am the recovering workaholic.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so, like, I get it. I still have a ton of vacation time for this year that I need to take. But it is not some kind of badge of honor to wear, pastor or ministry leader, that at the end of the year you have 80% of your vacation time still on the books. Like, that's not a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But somewhere we've created that.
Yeah.
And I think more often than not, it's the tired, not burned out.
And that whole notion of like just not cashing in on vacation, like, we know the impact that has on our family, but sometimes that comes from a place of, man, I want to be careful with this because I'm not trying to lump everybody into this particular box, but sometimes it comes from a place of superiority that, that this place needs me to be there or it will fall apart. And that can be born from maybe two different spots. One is it's born out of a place of pride, which is I'm essential, and if I'm not there, then it's not as good as it could be or as good as it needs to be, and no one can do it like I can, and probably not really willing to say that out loud, but it's reflected in our actions maybe. But I think also it comes from a place of when we go on vacation and something stops working, or the tech stuff goes down, or the lights aren't working, or Facebook live stream isn't happening, or whatever, And so it's this like, well, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about the complaints. I don't want to hear about the grumpiness of things not working. So it's just easier if I just don't. It's just easier if I don't. Or I just do these little chunks where I'm off like Tuesday, Wednesday, and half a day Thursday. And then you're not really giving yourself time off. You're certainly not giving time off to your family. What you're doing is you're sitting at home, stewing over it, fussing over it, and angry because you're not taking time off because you think you should be able to take time off, but there's no. So to me, it oftentimes that those particular habits that kind of build resentment lead us to a place where we really position ourselves for burnout. That it's not even necessarily what's happening organizationally, what's happening within the life cycle of our church, but because we've placed too high of a value on how essential we are to things.
And I know it's buzzwordy right now, but I think it's true. It's because we haven't done the hard work of building in essential, healthy rhythms.
Yeah, man.
In our lives.
Yeah.
And again, this is me talking directly at myself in this moment of there are far too many days when I fall into that category that you were just describing before, where not because I think I'm better than others, but because I think, well, I could just do it faster and easier if I did it myself.
Oh, of course.
And so let me just take care of it. I'll knock it out in a couple of hours, and then I can go do whatever. And there's always something else.
Yeah, there's always going to be something else.
So building in those healthy rhythms that say, hey, before, this self-inflicted burnout becomes an issue, what healthy thing can I put into my life that fixes that? Like, I love, I don't know if it was you and I were talking about it earlier, several weeks ago now, but like, I know that some churches are starting to institute like staff mental health days.
Yeah.
Just, I don't want to see you today.
Yep.
Like, you need to take one day during the month that is a regular work day and just don't be here.
Yes.
Don't care what you do. Don't do work stuff. Go take care of yourself. Whatever that means. If that means, like, I know, like for us, it's not the haircut, but maybe it's like we need to go to the beard barber and let them trim it up or whatever, like, or go fishing or whatever you do that is like just good for you. Like, do that. How much, if we would begin to practice those kind of rhythms, what would it do for these self-imposed burnouts that are just seem to be plaguing the church right now in leadership? But it's because we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, and a healthier staff means a healthier church.
Absolutely.
And that's something we don't often see the correlation between. Even if you have just a few folks on staff of your church, this is something where as a leadership and as a staff, you can get together and establish these guidelines and practices that where we're less about the organizational handbook of here's all the things you can't do. Here's all the things that if these bad things happen, here are the repercussions. But rather, here are all the things that we're doing to invest in the leadership of this church.
Yep.
And together, if you can articulate, again, coming back to that's why we're kind of focusing on these two particular habits, is we're talking about the why, not the what, and avoiding staff burnout. The why matters even here. If we can make a determination that a healthy staff means a healthy church, then that's the why. That's why we're doing this. Then we establish these rhythms and best practices for pouring into our teams. Yep. And then that becomes defensible when the question is posed, like, well, hey man, I know that you guys have office hours, and I saw that Greg wasn't here Wednesday this month, and what was going on with that? Man, Greg's taking a personal retreat day, and matter of fact, we encourage and actually, we expect all of our staff or all of our leaders to take a personal retreat day once a month. And this is what we're asking them to do. And we do that because we want them to feel invested in and to feel recharged and to feel like they matter, because these folks, they pour they pour themselves out. Yeah. And that, man, I tell you, that the why is so critical to everything that we do, and it impacts our staff in such a profound way. And so there are really creative ways that you can benefit and pour into your staff that have nothing to do with your annual budget.
Yep.
Have nothing to do with it. Just taking time to play together as a staff, inviting them over to your home for a meal, or one of the elders or deacons or whoever, is in charge at your church, just saying, hey, I'm coming up, and me and the wife, we're going to bring lunch for the whole staff, and we're just going to sit and play a game together. I mean, something as simple as that. It goes a long way to having a reprieve. Like, there are really small yet powerfully impactful decisions that can be made to not only build relationship, build cohesion, but invest in the team. And that is super defensible. Like, that is so easy.
Yeah. And I know that everybody's heard the horror stories about, churches being just unreasonable about, when people are in the office and when they aren't. But you know what? In my 20 years of ministry, more often than not, when somebody has asked any kind of question about my work schedule, even if it started at a place that was maybe a little bit of well, I don't think you're doing enough, by the end of that conversation, they quickly realized that they had no idea what we do.
Oh, they have no idea.
And by the time they walk away from that conversation, they're thinking, oh, well, you need to be gone more. And not in a bad way, but just like,
no,
it's been how long since you've had a day off? Like,
right.
Yeah, you need to not be here.
Yes.
And like, I've never in the 20 years had somebody, well, like, you're never in the office. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had that conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think most of that, if we're honest, is in our own minds.
Man, I agree.
That people are if they don't see my car in the parking lot, they're gonna wonder what I do all day.
They already do. You know?
Yeah. And
who cares?
You think they're really keeping track?
Yeah, they're not. No, they need their pastor to be well put together.
Yeah, and the one person who is, like, it doesn't matter how many hours you're at the church.
Yeah.
Like, if they're keeping track, they're not going to be happy anyway.
Yeah, because if it's not that, they're going to find something else.
Right, exactly.
Your people need you at your very best, so that when life does happen and they need you, you're there.
Yep.
And you're not phoning it in. You're not burned out. You're not facing your own sort of existential mental health crisis, because you're at your, wit's end, and they need you. And so really, at the end of the day, this is something that the people that are in charge of leading our churches, they should have a pretty good handle of the pace of ministry and the requirements and really the impact that it has on individual lives. And there should be a profound sense of why we invest in our staff. And what we know it can do. And so the things that we're counting are not necessarily your progress reports or your ministry reports or whatever you're turning in, but it's how are you doing personally?
Yeah.
How are you growing your affection for Jesus? Like, how are you spending time with your family right now?
Right.
If we start asking those questions, the impact of ministry is profound.
Yeah.
And I think these are just two simple habits that can absolutely kill growth in your church in a big way, that are easy fixes. Spending time together as a team, honing in on the why, reminding your team regularly, and that's whoever it is, volunteers, lay leaders, your staff, if it's just you and a few other leaders, whatever your context looks like, constantly being reminded of the why will have a much greater impact on the what, and helping to avoid staff burnout by investing in those people that are in charge of investing in all of the people. Man, those two things are critical and great new habits to start that will yield tremendous momentum and will build you a fantastic wave coming into the summer. So I think those are just a couple that we're going to, kind of land the plane on today. We're going to come back next week and wrap up this mini series. And man, we've heard from you. We know that this has been a helpful series. We're excited to see some of the new rhythms that are created in your church as a result of that. And maybe one of those rhythms is deciding now that, like, man, we need to bring some intentionality in how we start planning, how we start executing. And there are lots of great resources on the Simplified Church website that can help you think more strategically about how you do planning, how you do vision casting, how you do budgeting. There are some really great resources here that oftentimes, man, these resources are born out of conversations that we've had with other pastors that have had years and years of bad habits that have led them to a place of just feeling stuck. And so these are kind of designed to help you get unstuck in some of those ways. And so, man, we're not just talking about this in the abstract. We've got some real practical nuts and bolts resources for you on there. All kinds of free downloads on our resource page that you can grab. And if you want to talk more about budgeting, we would love to have that conversation with you as well. But as always, pastor, church leader, I mean, we say it every week. We've been saying it for 70-something weeks. We're in your corner. We believe in you. You are the everyday pastor that is our hero. And so we just want you to know that we're praying for you, and we can't wait to be back with you again here real soon.